Okay, today we're going to be learning about the custom of eating dairy on Shavuos. Why is this done? What's the story? If we like meat, should we be having meat? So in the end, we're going to discuss all of the practical halachas that are needed. Over here, we're going to discuss over 10 reasons why there's a custom to eat dairy. Furthermore, when we eat dairy, is there idea of eating dairy specifically during the Suda, the meal itself on Shavuos, or could you have dairy anytime whatsoever? So we're going to discuss that as well. Just a little bit of milk and coffee, is that considered dairy? Will that fulfill this custom? Let's say someone is lactose. Does he need to eat just a little dairy or no, not at all? Right? It's not unnecessary. Is having dairy also considered a lack of oneg yontif, enjoying the holiday of Shavuos, to have meat? So the Ramah in Hilchos Shavuos in Siman Tov Sadi Dal, it says that the custom is to eat dairy products on the first day of Shavuos. V'nohagim b'kol makom le'echol ma'achal yichol b'yoim rishon shel Shavuos. Notice that the Ramah specifies that it's specifically the first day of Shavuos for those of us who are not living in Israel. It seems like the custom is only on the first day, not the second day, according to the Ramah. Furthermore, we have to analyze, it seems like perhaps according to the Ramah, you should specifically eat it during the day. So the time is really limited to the first day of Shavuos, not the night, excluding the night, or maybe the Ramah means the night itself. When you say day, it's lav dafka, it's not specifically. The Ramah himself provides a reason for this custom. Eating dairy products, says the Ramah, is venerally hatam shuhu kemo yashnei tafshilin shaloichem el Pesach. This is the two dishes that they would take on the night of Pesach. One dish commemorates the Korban Pesach, and one dish commemorates the Korban Chagiga, the sacrifice. So you have two of them. So too, we eat dairy, and then subsequently, afterwards, we eat meat, and you have to bring two breads with the table, which the tables instead of the mizbeach, the altar, and that will commemorate the two breads that they would bring on Shavuos. Basically, that's what we see from the Ramah over here. So now, according to this Ramah, one has to have meat and dairy during the same exact meal. Now, first we have dairy with one loaf, and then we have meat with the second loaf over here. Now, according to this Ramah, the custom of eating dairy on Shavuos has actually very little to do with eating dairy itself. Rather, the dairy food serves as a means to guarantee that one will have two loaves of bread at the table on the meal, right? Having dairy and meat at the same meal requires having two loaves at the meal. Okay. Now, Rabbi Yerucham Olshin in his Yarech L'Moadim, Maimer Lamites asks a question on this Ramah. Why do we need to perform a physical mitzvah to remember the Shesei Halechem more than any other korban that we had? According to many of the reasons that we're going to learn about, right? The dairy that we eat doesn't need to be eaten during the meal itself. We're going to be seeing all of the reasons. However, according to this Ramah, the dairy actually needs to be eaten during the meal itself. Now, the Korban Omer consisted of barley, unlike the Shesei Halechem, which was wheat, which is better than barley. The Sa'irim, the barley is Meichel Behemoths, like animal food, which is in the beginning of Sfira, and then we grow throughout Sfira, and we finally get to the Shesei Halechem, the end, which is the human food. All right? That's the idea over here. We go from our animalistic state prior to receiving the Torah to more of our human state. Rambam says that someone without Torah and mitzvahs isn't in the category of a human. Intense statement. This is why the Shesei Halechem, which is brought on Shavuos, consisted of wheat. Wheat symbolized that we became humans when we received the Torah. This is also why we need to perform a physical mitzvah to commemorate the Shesei Halechem more than other korbanos, because it's more than a korban. It symbolizes how we evolved and elevated ourselves from our animalistic state to our human state. Reason number two why there's a custom to have dairy is the pre-Chodesh. During the time of Shavuos, we receive the Torah. The Gemara in Tainis and Daf Zayin compares the Torah to milk. The Torah is compared to milk. It's therefore a customary practice to eat dairy at the time when we received the Torah. The Sefer Taimim and Hagim in Simin Tafresh Chav Beis explains that milk alludes to chesed, kindness. Hashem gave us the Torah because He's very kind. The Bnei Yischaschar says that we have to still eat meat because the Gemara in Psachim on Kufteh says, Ein simcha el babasar. There's only going to be happiness when there is meat over here. So therefore, we're going to discuss the practical way of applying this, of having both the meat and dairy. We're going to discuss it as we continue. The Kolbo says that since the Gemara compares Torah to honey, is the Kolbo in Siman Nun Beis, therefore we should actually have honey on Shavuos. And the pasuk in Shir HaShirim says, Tvash v'cholov tachas l'shoynech. This is Shir HaShirim Dal Yud Aleph, that the Torah is dripping from your lips like honey and milk under your tongue. And Rav Harfenis in Shilos Veteshuvos in the Mekadesh Yisrael on Shavuos and Siman Ayin says, why don't people have honey on Shavuos? So it's an interesting idea. Reason number 3 why there's a custom to eat dairy. The Magen Avram says that we eat dairy on Shavuos is based on a Zohar. Zohar says that we count the Omer for 49 days, or in other words, 7 weeks, each consisting of 7 days. These 7 days and 7 weeks correspond to the 7 clean days a married woman waits in order to become permissible to her husband. So therefore, the Gemara in Bechayros, interestingly enough, on Daf Vav relates that the dam of a woman turns into milk. When a mother is feeding her little baby, her infant, when she's nursing, where does the milk come from? It comes from blood. The blood turns into milk. Blood symbolizes din, strict judgment, whereas the milk, the chalav, symbolizes rachamim, mercy. Similarly, when the Jews left Egypt, they had to purify themselves as well. So we have dairy products in order to recall Hashem's mercy that He bestowed upon us, aka the rachamim. That's another reason for milk. One of the commonly quoted reasons, and we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive on this, reason 4 is what the Mishnah Berurah says. The Mishnah Berurah says, so reason number 4 over here is the Mishnah Berurah in Siman Tav Sadi Daled in Os Yud Beis. He says, I heard in the name of a gadol, a great person, who said that a correct reason for this is as follows. Now, Rav Harfenis points out that others say this as well, in his Shilos Veteshuvos Mekadesh Yisrael and Shavuos and Siman Ayin. He says that others offer this reason as well, including the Imri Pinchas. He offers this reason in Shabbos HaMoadim, and the Sefer Oilas Yisrael, Shilos Veteshuvos Mincha Shachar, a few offer this reason. That what happened? He says that the Jews, that they stood at the foot, he stood at the bottom of Har Sinai, of Mount Sinai, and they accepted the Torah, right? So the whole Torah was revealed to them when the 10 Commandments were revealed. Rav Sadia Gaon explains. And then what happened? They went down. They went down the mountain and they had nothing to eat over there, right? They needed to eat something. The problem was, if they were going to have meat, that would require a lot of preparation. They would have to shecht it, slaughter it. They'd have to check a knife, clean out the strings of forbidden fats and blood. They would have to rinse the salt from the meat. They would have to cook it in new vessels because their previous vessels, they were used to cook meat, right? Which they now discovered wasn't even kosher within the last 24 hours, which is going to be a problem in Daraisa from the Torah. In short, we eat dairy in order to commemorate that the Jews ate dairy after they received the Torah. Now, the Chafetz Chaim, in another place, there's at the end of the Sefer Likutei Halachos, quoted by those V'Hadar Mishnah Berurah over there, and footnote 41 says that the kashrus reason only goes according to this reason, because the technicalities that the food wasn't kosher only goes according to the reason of Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, who holds that Torah was given on the eve of Shabbos. Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer also says this as well. Meaning, according to those who say the Torah was given on Shabbos, they weren't allowed to eat meat then because they couldn't cook it anyways because of Shabbos, right? It wasn't because of a technical reason that it wasn't kosher. It was because it was Shabbos. So this reason is only needed according to those who hold that the Torah was given before Shabbos, on the eve of Shabbos. Okay? Perhaps this reason could still apply to those who say the Torah was given on Shabbos. Why didn't they just cook the food before Shabbos? They didn't know that it was prohibited to cook on Shabbos. So therefore, as previously mentioned, this reason only goes according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, who holds that the Torah was given on the eve of Shabbos. So this is the idea. This is the Mishnah Berurah. Let's go into reason number 5: the Taimim Minhagim. The Taimim Minhagim in Siman Tov Reish Chav Daled quotes the Bamidbar Rabbah. The Bamidbar Rabbah in the beginning in Oscha says that Har Sinai has 8 names. One of the names of Givoinim, within the Shirish, the root of the word Givoinim is Givino, which means cheese. We therefore eat dairy products in order to remember Har Sinai. The time in Minhagim offers another reason in Siman Tov Reish Chav Hey, as well as the Oitzer Satira quotes this on Shavuos as well on page 149 to 150. Rabbi Pinchas Mikorit says that the Torah doesn't dwell within someone who is arrogant, as stated in the Gemara in Tainis on Zayin and Aleph. One of the prerequisites, the necessary conditions for a person to become a true Talmud Chacham, a real scholar, is humility. That's what the dairy food symbolizes. Meat is very choshev, it's very important, it's arrogant, it's expensive, so to say. Dairy food, however, conversely, is less important, it's cheaper, it's more humble, and therefore Moshe received the Torah from Sinai. Moshe kibel Torah mi Sinai, we discussed when we were learning Avos, the recording's already up, that he received a lesson, one explanation from Har Sinai, which was the smallest of the mountains and very humble. So too over here, there's an aspect of humility which is incredibly important as well. Rabbi Weisenfeld explains in the Packet Halacha series on page 20, based on the Gemara in Tainus that says that milk cannot be stored in vessels of gold or silver without spoiling. It has to be stored in plain earthenware vessels. This symbolizes that the Torah can only imbue itself in those who are humble. Therefore, we eat dairy specifically at a time when we receive the Torah, aka Shavuos, because this food represents humility. See also the shir that we just had last night, which was what is the connection between Parshas Bamidbar, Sefer Bamidbar, and Shavuos, and one of the ideas is humility, just like a desert as well. That ties into this answer. The Time in Minhagim offers yet another reason in Siman Tov Reish Chav Hey in the Kuntrus Achron Os Hey. The Gemara in Bechoros asks how it's permissible to drink milk on Davov. Isn't it prohibited because it's considered Aver Min Achai? It's a limb that's separated from an animal, something that's separated from an animal. Before we had the pasuk that says that it was a land flowing of milk and honey, it was in fact in Shmos and Gimel Yud Zayin, it was in fact prohibited. So therefore, before the Jews received the Torah, having milk was one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, one of the 7 Noahide laws. We therefore consume dairy products in order to commemorate receiving the Torah, which allowed us to consume the milk. So this is another idea as well, because it's interesting allusion over here. Now, reason number 8, the Oitzer Satira on pages 149 to 150 quotes the Chidah, who says, when we received the Torah, we became weak. The Gemara in Beitza on Chav Heyam at Beis asks, why was the Torah given to the Jews? It's because the Jews are brazen, they're bold. The Torah, when they learn Torah, will weaken them and it will basically humble them. When the Jews returned to their homes after receiving the Torah, they needed some light food, aka dairy. This is the idea. Reason number 9 is going to be a much longer answer and a much deeper answer. If you're going to remember anything, you're probably going to remember this one. Oitzer Pelayos HaTorah on Vayikra on pages 1017 to 1018 offers a fascinating and insightful reason. The Gemara in Sota on Yud Beis Amid Beis relates that Moshe was placed in the basket that floated on the water on the 6th of Sivan. Therefore, Moshe was hidden after his birth for 3 months. Do the math. Moshe was in the basket, floated on water, 6th of Sivan. He was hidden after his birth for 3 months. The Tosefta says that Moshe died and was born on the 7th of Adar. It's a Tosefta in Saita over there in Yud Aleph Zayin. Paro's daughter Basya found Moshe on the 6th of Sivan. Thus, Moshe wouldn't there. And what happened when Moshe was discovered? He wouldn't nurse from any of the Egyptians. Miriam took over, advised Basya to find someone Jewish to nurse Moshe. The Gemara asks, why Paro's daughter would specifically want a Jewish nurse? The Gemara says, before this, they brought Moshe around to all the Egyptian nurses, and he didn't agree to nurse from any of them. because he said a mouth that in the future is going to speak with the divine presence can't nourish from something impure. In order to commemorate this, the custom of eating dairy on the 6th of Sivan, aka Shavuos, resulted. Because that was the day when this happened, and Basya didn't want Moshe to starve to death and to die. Right? It was the milk. It was the milk with the nursing. Few questions. Number one. Once Paro's daughter saw that Moshe was nursing, why didn't she call a doctor? Why didn't she immediately agree to use a Jewish woman without asking questions? Why didn't Moshe nurse from an Egyptian woman? It was a pressing situation. Shasa dechak. He needed to drink, and therefore it should be permissible. Rabbi Yehuda Leib Chasman answers this in the Or Yahel and explains that Moshe did this because he was going to speak with Hashem. Even accidentally eating something that isn't kosher is a problem. This is similar to someone who eats something that physically damages his body. Someone who consumes something that isn't kosher will be negatively affected from a spiritual perspective. The Gemara in Yuma on Lamed Testament Aleph states that sin obstructs the heart of a person who commits it. And therefore, a person has to be very careful. Rashi explains when a person sins, it seals up his heart. This pasuk refers to the prohibition of eating bugs. When someone eats a bug, he not only becomes impure, but the pipes that help him become wise also get clogged and closed up. This doesn't exclusively apply to food. It applies to all sins. Anytime someone sins, it causes him to become impure and the pipes begin to get sealed up and closed. All sins negatively influence those who transgress them. Even, what?
This is the Rabbi Cosmo.
Yeah, this is all idea is brought. Even though that a child wouldn't officially transgress any sin by eating non-kosher, even so, accidental consumption could cause the non-kosher food to mix within the blood of those who eat it. The body doesn't care. If a person accidentally swallowed a pill that he shouldn't have, the body is going to react. When the child continues to grow, the impurity grows within him as well. The Menizra explains that the body that eats food will return to what it ate. In other words, you are what you eat, aka one's body gets affected by what it eats. Moshe therefore refrained from nursing from the Egyptians because he knew this. That doesn't mean to say that a person who eats non-kosher has no hope. He could change, but he's got to be careful. Shulchan Aruch says that babies shouldn't nurse from non-Jewish nurses as it's possible to be nursed from a Jew. The reason, as we said above, is the milk could close off the child's heart. This is explicit in your Dayan Siman Pei Aleph. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, in his biography on page 330, quotes an interesting Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon in your day over there on Pei Aleph Lamed Aleph says that the source of this halacha is the medrash that says that Moshe refused to nurse from someone who wasn't Jewish because one day he was going to speak with the divine presence with Hashem. Question: how could we derive halacha from Moshe for every single other Jew? He's at a much higher level. Moshe was an exception since he would speak with Hashem. Explains Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, every Jewish child has to be educated as if he will one day speak to the divine presence of Hashem, and therefore this halacha could be derived from Moshe. Rabbi Alexander Friedman explains, this is in the Ma'ayna Shel Torah on Bereshis page 134, that this is why many times one rabbi says to another rabbi whose name isn't Moshe, Shapir Ka'amart Moshe, it's good what you said. Why are you calling the guy Moshe? His name is Shmuel over here. What's the explanation over here? Based on what we said, the answer is obvious. Moshe is within each and every single one of us. Regarding Moshe, the Gemara says in Brachos on Lamed Gimel, recordings on the whole Brachos Rabbi under the Gemara section, that what? Va'ati Yisrael ma Hashem Elokecha Shalom Yamach Kiyum Yir Hashem just asked Firim. Ask the Gemara Asu Yir Shemayim Milsos Zuzrasahi. Do you think that fearing heaven is easy? It's not. The Gemara answers in Legabe Moshe Milsos. Yes, by Moshe it's easy. This is analogous if you're borrowing something from someone else and he has it, even if it's an expensive or a rare item. If he has it, it's easy to lend it out. So to over here. What does this have to do with the rest of people? This only answer is Moshe. Based on what we said, we could explain everyone has a trace of Moshe within him. If we could tap into the Moshe within ourselves, then fearing heaven would in fact be easy. Taisvus quotes the Yerushalmi, Taisun Chagigan Tesvav, which we actually discussed a few days ago. Elisha ben Avuya went off the path. Why? One explanation from the Taisus, which we didn't discuss over there, is because that was on the Bamidbar with the fire, with the water. We discussed on the fire section of that. Why the Torah is compared to the fire, the water, the Midbar. One of the reasons that Taisva says, which we didn't discuss there, is when Elisha ben Avuya's mother passed by a place of idolatry and she smelled it. She then ate the food. This food was like a poison and it caused Elisha bad, caused him bad news even before he was born. So therefore, that was a problem over there, right? So that's the idea. The food that a person eats can negatively affect him. The Mishnah in Avos says, Aveira goyreres, Aveira in the fourth parak, that what? One sin could lead to another sin. The word goyreres could also mean goyrer, a desire. When one sins, it creates an automatic, negative, and natural-like desire to sin more. When Adam Harishon sinned, death was brought into the world. Why should the rest of mankind be punished because of his sin? The Gemara in Brachos relates on Dav Zayim that the righteous person who prospers is a Sadik ben Sadik. He's righteous, the son of someone else who is righteous. The righteous person who suffers, however, he's the son of a wicked person. The Gemara asks, is one always punished for his ancestors' transgressions? Isn't it written not that way? So, right? So the Gemara says over here that what? Hashem punishes the descendants for the transgression of their ancestors. No, that's referring to a case of when they adopt the actions of their ancestors on their own. Whereas the other psukim that said that they're not punished, that refers to that they are not following the ways of their ancestors. That's the idea over here. So therefore, in addition to the actual punishment of a sin, a bad nature is going to result and be created. This is why death for all future generations resulted from Adam Arishon sins. This is called the Zehuma, the filth from the snake. Even if someone didn't do anything wrong, there was still a negative impact that resulted. Reason number 10, Rabbi Harfness in Shilos Veteshuvos Birchas Yosef and Shavuos in siman Ayin explains from the Sefer HaMinhagim, who says, the pasuk says, "Ubiyoim habikurim," that on the day of the first fruits you're going to bring an offering for the new grain, a mincha chadasha la Hashem, and then that's what it's going to be. The Roshei Tevos of the words chadasha la Hashem b'shavuos seichem. If you take the first letters of each of those words, chadasha ches la Hashem lamed, and the Beis B'Shavuos Seichem spells out chal of milk. The pasuk therefore alludes to the custom of eating dairy products on Shavuos. Reason number 11, the Eliya Rabbah quotes the Seidel Derech, who says that infants nurse and drink milk. And this is comparable to the Torah. The Torah is our sustenance, just like a mother's milk is a baby sustenance. Just like the milk is needed for the survival of a baby, and without it, the child would die, God forbid, so too the Torah is needed for the survival of the Jewish people. Without it, we would all die. Reason number 12, Rabbi Yosef Landau explains in the Shilos Veteshuvos Birchas Yosef and Siman Chof, we eat dairy products in order to commemorate Yael. Sisera was the general of the Canaanite army. It's in the beginning of Sefer Shoftim. When he saw that they were losing, he ran to Yael's tent to hide. Little did he know that she had a plan. She tried to tire him out, and she gave him milk in order to get him tired. Guess what? When he fell asleep, she killed him. And therefore, there's a custom to have milk because it commemorates this event. Obviously, what does this have to do with Shavuos? Okay, this is what to look into over there. Reason number 13, the Gemara in Psachim relates a fundamental machloikis on Samech Chesed Beis, a machloikis between the Tanoim. According to Rabbi Eliezer, one should either eat and drink, or just learn Torah. Rabbi Yeshua argues and holds that no, on Yontif you have to do both. Chatzi l'Hashem, split it up. Half physical pursuits, half spiritual pursuits. The Gemara then quotes Rabbi Eliezer, who says, "Akol moedim ba'atzeres debe'ini nami lachem my time yom shenasam bo Torah." Everyone agrees on Shavuos that you need a physical enjoyment. because the Torah was given. Rashi explains that after one eats, he will be joyful. This will demonstrate that the Torah was given during this time. The Rambam writes that even though we must eat and drink on Yom Tov, nevertheless we shouldn't eat and drink the entire day. This is the Rambam in Hilchos Yom Tov on Vav Yud Tes. It shouldn't be the entire day. Rather, in the morning we should daven and learn, and afterwards we return home and eat. And then we should return and learn more. Kesef Mishnah points out that the Rambam holds, interestingly enough, like Rabbi Yeshua, who says that you should split it up half-half. The reason that we hold like Rabbi Yeshua is based on another Gemara. The Gemara in Nida says that there's a machloikas, an argument, Nida and Dav Zayin, between Rabbi Yezin and Rabbi Yeshua. When there's an argument, we hold like Rabbi Yeshua. Shulchan Aruch also paskins like Rabbi Yeshua in Siman Tov Kuf Chav Tes. Because of this reason, Mishnah Berurah writes that we should protest chazanim who drag out the davening until after halachic midday. I know a lot of people will like that halacha. Seemingly, the halacha should what? Yeah. Seemingly, the halacha should be opposite. In order to commemorate the time the Torah was given, it should be fully dedicated to learning Torah. Isn't that the highest way of serving Hashem, completely abstaining from physical and complete dedication to spiritual? See the recording to RabbiBlan.com in the Moadim section on Shavuos 27c, where we discuss this at length, this idea over here. Let's go a little bit more. Beis Halevi explains at the end of Parshas Yisro, we were victorious and received the Torah instead of the angels. The Gemara in Shabbos, this is one idea. The Gemara in Shabbos on Peichas Amid Beis, going on to the next Talmud over there, says the angels said that what happened when Moshe ascended to Har Sinai to receive the Torah. The angel said before Hashem, Master of the universe, what is someone who's a human mortal doing over here? Hashem said he came to receive the Torah. The angel said, what do you mean? This has been a hidden treasure that's been concealed for 974 generations before the creation of the world. You seek to give it to just mortal flesh and blood? Moses said, what do you mean? What's written in the Torah? None of it applies to you. Keep Shabbos, don't kill, honor your parents. It doesn't apply to you. Testify falsely, etc., etc. And Moshe therefore said, stealing, you don't have those. Jealousy, you have nothing to do with them. And therefore it was agreed upon that the Torah was going to be given to people. In short, we were victorious and received the Torah instead of the angels because we physically perform the mitzvahs unlike angels. In order to commemorate this fundamental and historic event, we're therefore obligated to physically feast on the day when we receive the Torah. Even furthermore, we first eat dairy and then meat. This demonstrates that we're able to fulfill the halachas pertaining specifically to physical mitzvahs, aka that are surrounded around consumption of food. When the angels visited Avram, what did they eat? Milk. They ate milk and meat, and it was actually together. Interestingly enough, remember, they don't need to worry about it. So therefore, we're different than that. On Shavuos, we demonstrate this by properly separating in between the milk and the dairy products. The sheet, what? Yeah, that was the Shittim Mekubetzes on Bechayros and the Avav, how Avram himself fed the angels meat and milk together. It's prohibited to benefit from meat and milk. So how did he feed them? And he was benefiting from a prohibited mixture. He says since they weren't Jewish and they weren't commanded not to mix meat and milk, it was before Har Sinai. Therefore, it's permissible, which is a difficult answer to understand because it's still prohibited to benefit. And if it's prohibited, so then it's certain, even to feed an animal, certainly a human, and you have to say that Avram was careful what to look into over there.
If it's a spiritual benefit, no?
Yeah, but still, you have to say that they kept the Torah before it was given.
No, 100%. But if it's not a physical, no, I mean, it's getting.
He thought that they were real people.
I didn't.
So how did you feed real people that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, all right. Now, let's discuss over here. Let's wrap it up with this. When should the dairy products be eaten? There are different customs. The Piskei Chuvutz and Siman Tov Sadi Dalid and the Osyud Aleph relates that there are different customs when to eat it. Right? Those who have the custom to split up their meal by first eating dairy and then meat have to be careful not to overeat, he says. Overeating will cause tiredness, which would cause bittul Torah, people not learning Torah. Especially this applies as far as I'm talking about on the first night of Shavuos, and you're going to stay up all night, don't eat too much because then you're going to get too tired. The more prevalent custom is to eat dairy products, as we learned on the first day of Shavuos. Some have dairy on the second day as well. Some have the custom to split up the meal. Some people eat dairy just after they stay up at night on the first night of Shavuos, and then after they make Kiddush before they go to sleep, they eat dairy. Now, according to the reason of Rav Harfenis, right? Uh, According to one of those reasons that we said in the Taimim and Hagim, the Bamidbar Rabbah, Har Sinai 8 names. One of the names is Givoinim, cheese. You should have specifically cheese, according to that. Specifically cheese, right? Right, and according to the Ramah, it would be just, it seems like the first day, first night. Maybe even you should have it during the Suda, according to the Ramah. We asked that question because this should say Halechem. The whole idea is to get to the bread. In conclusion, we offered many reasons for eating dairy products during Shavuos. The different reasons have different halachic ramifications, and if possible, one should be stringent and have cheese during the Suda, the meal itself. Someone who enjoys eating meat should try to split the meal on the first day of Shavuos without a burden. You could have the dairy at a kiddush. That will be enough. These are some insights on dairy, 13 reasons. Thought it was worthwhile to go through. Any questions, comments, and anything that we just did?
Just the benefit that Avraham Avinu had.
Yeah.
I mean, what's technically the hana he had is that he got a mitzvah out of it?
Was it?
Benefit
Is
is
it?
like serving guests meat and dairy. You benefit.
Is it possible? Is it possible to?
What's the benefit
when you feed your dog?
when you feed your dog? You benefit. You get something. You feel happy inside because you helped someone else.
That's the benefit.
I mean, that's part of it, and then you have the spiritual benefit, the mitzvah benefit.
I'm just curious.
That's what I wanted to do.
We talk about it's a possible club. We talk about any spiritual.
That could perhaps the simple explanation of benefit is physical, though.
Right. That's what I'm
But,
saying.
yeah.
There you go.
David, what's the question?
Is it possible? Is it possible that the milk was before the meat? Is it possible that the milk was before the meat or no?
Yeah, but they had it seems like together.
But is it? Is it possible that they
It
had
seems
it
like the way that it's
before?
brought down is that they had it together simultaneously.
Both together? Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Okay, Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow we will continue. Everyone, remember to have a lavish Suda in honor of Rosh Chodesh. Wash. Nice Suda. All right.
Wow.
All right, bro.
All right.